Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulihil Kareem. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, dear students, and welcome to the Student Affairs Office session arranged on the assignment writing guidelines. I am Yasmin Toor, and I have with myself Dr. Shafiqur Rahman, the HOD from the Department of Business Administration, as well as Sister Asma Miller. I thank you for joining the session, and I hope that the content that we bring to you today is going to benefit you along your journey as a student of the IOU. So let's start with the contents of the session, inshallah. If we can move to the next slide. So the focal points of today's session will be general tips on how to do a better assignment, the general do's and don'ts of academic writing, frequent mistakes made by students and how to fix them. There's going to be a special segment on the newly introduced group assignments at the IOU with our head of department, Dr. Shafiqur Rahman. Then we will cover plagiarism and how to avoid having a high plagiarism score on your assignments. We will also talk about the proper referencing of sources. Then Sister Asma Miller will cover samples and components of the assignments, as well as address frequently asked questions about the assignments. And after that, if any of your concerns haven't already been covered in the session, you can ask them in the live Q&A, inshallah. So moving on to the next slide. We, first of all, have a couple of things to do. Since all our actions depend on the kind of intention we make, the most important thing before doing anything, which also includes your assignments, is to fix your intention, renew your intention, focus on why you chose to be a student of the IOU and why you chose to go on this journey of seeking Islamic knowledge. So having a sincere intention of doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of betterment of yourself, and then ultimately to transmit the useful knowledge that you gain to other people in the community and the ummah. This will help you on your journey, and it will help you achieve a better outcome and stay focused. So before you begin your assignments, there's one thing you need to do, and that is to set your perspective. So for many of you, the assignments would just be looked at something, just a task, an ordinary task that you just need to check off a certain list in order to, complete your course, and that is working towards the completion of your degree. But if you focus on a different perspective and think of it as an opportunity to learn, to refine your existing abilities, to maybe acquire new skills, and to improve your aptitude towards research and writing in general, that would be something that would help you achieve a better outcome, and it would benefit you in the long run. So for you as a student, the assignment should not just be a task that you have to do by a certain deadline because it was assigned to you. It should be an opportunity for you to learn, to polish yourself, to refine yourself, and to add to your existing skill set. So don't just look at it as a task given to you by your TA. Look at it as an opportunity to learn something new. Okay. And that goes hand in hand with setting the goals and objectives that you want to be fulfilling while doing your assignment. You do not just want to, complete a couple of pages of writing to be able to hand them in before the set deadline. You should be able to use that assignment and the process of writing that assignment to fulfill the goals and the objectives you set towards becoming a better researcher of the deen, inshallah. So moving on to the next slide. So, okay, the general tips for writing a better assignment. So what I've seen and what psychologists even have proven that works is that you have a clean and organized workspace. So if you are going to do your assignments, it's helpful to have a dedicated room. If you don't have a dedicated room for your study, it's also possible to have a study nook or a dedicated desk, right? And focusing on cleaning up your desk, organizing your stationery, organizing your workspace, and setting up your corner in which you're going to work is helpful in prepping your mind and clearing up your mind, decluttering your mind. So it's always helpful to have a clean and organized workspace. So it's also proven to have your favorite stationery, maybe your favorite colors, to motivate yourself and to have a better and more positive mindset about beginning the work that you are going to do. So these are the things. This is a little bit of preparation and a little bit of, organizing, a little bit of, pampering yourself so you feel that you are in the working zone. So the first thing that you need to do when you download your assignment question paper from the course page is to understand the assignment question clearly. Read it, reread it, read it as many times as you need to in order to clearly understand what is being asked of you. Okay. The first step to be able to write something or to be able to answer something is to understand the question that is being asked of you. Okay. So many times students just, they don't really understand the gist of what the TA is requiring from you in your assignment. And you rush into, just starting to download data, reading through random things, and you actually fail to really focus on the content that should be in your assignment. So it's really important that you understand the assignment question, first of all. Even if it takes you, let's say, an hour to sit down and process, it doesn't matter. This is time invested at the right moment that will save you a lot of trouble later on. Okay. So before you actually get to write your assignment, you need to brainstorm. You need to, make mind maps. You need to, organize your thoughts, organize what information you already have in your mind before you sit down and, start Googling articles or relevant material or, studying books. So it's very important that you brainstorm before you sit down to actually write your assignment. And once you did that, you make an outline. Because you understood the question clearly, you now know approximately what the flow of your assignment is going to be. And according to that flow, you make an outline. You can use an application on your phone. You can use, you can scribble it in your notebook. You can make a separate Word document. It's entirely about your preference. If you want to, make an electronic outline, you can do it on your computer. Some people prefer to actually write with pen and paper, so you can jot it down in a notebook, but make sure to make a rough outline. And keep in mind that this outline isn't set in stone, but it will help you to actually stay on course during the assignment. So the next step is to research material once you have made your outline. So once you have made your outline, you would be aware of the topics or the subtopics or the contents that need to be touched during your assignment. So it's always helpful to, sit down and actually research the material beforehand. You read and organize your articles. You look at the material. You do not do this on the go, because if you have started writing and you are researching material as you write, it doesn't really help in organizing your thoughts. You would be distracted and you would not be focused on a single thing. Like, you could be very well going really on course according to your outline, but then, you're looking at a new article and there's new information in there. And then that new information totally throws you off your game and scatters your thoughts everywhere. And you lose your focus. So always have researched material before you sit down to write. So once you have researched that material, you read through that material, you identify what parts of the articles are actually useful to go into your assignment, and then you sit down to write. And this will help you to stay on course of the topic, right? It's always important to organize your content and organize your information. It will help you have an organized approach to your actual writing style. One other important thing is to have time management. You always need to allocate sufficient time to re-edit and revise your assignment, because an assignment or a term paper or a research paper, none of these things is perfect in the first attempt. You always need to go back, read through it, and make modifications or make insertions or deletions, or shuffle around content. And this takes time. So do not leave your assignment for like the last week before your deadline, and then you write it in a rush, and then you don't really have time to, go over it and fix any mistakes that you have made on the way, and you end up submitting it with errors, and that would result in a loss of your grade. So always allow timing for revising and editing your assignment, and make a habit of thinking critically. So if we move on to the next slide. Okay, so assignment writing falls under the umbrella of academic writing. So academic writing is very different from informal writing. So during the course of your school, you might have learned to, how to write a report or a letter or an application or an essay or, these type of things, or maybe a dialogue. And these are all things that, employ informal types of writing styles. But academic writing is a bit different from informal writing. So there are certain things that you need to do and you need to check while you are writing academic stuff. That includes your assignments, your research papers, review papers, your thesis, academic articles, book chapters, for example, book summaries. These are all things that fall under the hood of academic writings. So what to do is take referencing seriously. So within your assignments, you always need to reference your sources. The second thing you need to do is use all the available resources of information that are already given to you. So it's often that the assignment question actually comes from something that is within your course, or at least it relates to the topics discussed in your course somehow. So it's highly possible that there is already relevant material given to you as study material on the IOU course page, for example, or under the students' notes section, for example. So it's always necessary to look at the information and the resources that are already provided to you and to make use of those resources and that information that's given to you. One thing that differentiates informal writing from academic writing, which also includes your assignments, is that you need to use credible sources of information. Like you can't just use Wikipedia, for example, because anybody can edit Wikipedia without providing a reliable citation or a reliable reference, for example. You don't want to use open source information that anybody can edit. So things like Wikipedia or a random blog article on a website, or maybe a random social media post or something. These are sources that are actually not credible. So you always need to use credible academic sources to shape an academic assignment, okay? One thing that is also very important is that you maintain a formal tone. So your sentence structure, your vocabulary should be not informal, but very formal, very technical, and very academic. You should use technical vocabulary, and you need to write objectively. Another thing that you need to do is use appropriate sentence structure. Let your sentences reflect the level of your academic ability. So there's a difference between writing a normal sentence in, for example, an essay, and a really high level intellectual sentence in an assignment. So let that show in your writing. And always, always, always stick to the format and the guidelines that are provided to you. So if you go to your course pages, for example, when the assignment questions are released, you have an assignment question paper that you download, and on there is the assignment question. On there is most of the times a marking rubric, like what component of your assignment carries how much weightage of your total grade. And there are also information regarding the format that you need to follow, like the font size that you need to use, the margins that you need to follow, the line spacing that you need to follow, the word count that you need to follow. Like you always need to read through those instructions and stick to those provided instructions. So sometimes students don't read those instructions and they end up getting deducted from their total grade for things that could have been prevented. So it's always very important to stick to the format that's provided to you. So some of the things that you don't do when you are writing an academic piece, which also includes your assignments, obviously, is the usage of colloquial language. And you also don't use inappropriate fonts and styles. So there are certain times when students, they would like to use, fancy borders or nice colors, different colors other than black, to, just in their head, they are, differentiating their assignment from the others. Maybe they want to give the assignment an artistic touch, but this is not the place to do it. An academic assignment should be very formal looking, very clean looking, and you should never go overboard with using inappropriate or overly stylish fonts and styles. So as I already mentioned, you should stick to the font and the style that is provided to you. Like some assignments would require you to use maybe strictly Times New Roman. So don't use another font just because you think the other font would look nicer. Use what has been asked of you. So avoid inappropriate fonts and styles. Also, don't change the verb tense. Part of academically structured sentences requires that you stick to the same tense. And when you are using indirect language, that is usually the past perfect, or when you are also avoiding to use personal language, you don't jump between, the different forms of your verb. You don't jump between the present and the future and the past quickly. You stick to a single verb tense and you follow through with that particular verb tense in the whole of your assignment. So another thing that you should not do at any cost is the use of personal pronouns or language. So your sentences should be structured in a way that do not point towards a subject. Like you cannot write, I feel that this is, like you cannot start your sentences with pronouns or, personal touches. You cannot, for example, if you are tasked with an assignment to write about the innovations that people have made in, following the Akida. So you cannot write, or you cannot start a sentence with like, I have seen people do this, or I have seen people in the subcontinent do this or that, or believe this or that. You need your sentence to sound very formal. Like, it has been observed that people in the subcontinent do this and this and blah, blah, blah. Like, you need to write objectively. One of the do's is to write objectively. And in order to write objectively, you don't use personal language or personal pronouns. Another thing that you need to avoid at any cost is the copying of information without reference. You don't steal anybody's content without providing the reference. So this is a huge, huge no. And if you copy content without reference, that would lead to plagiarism, which we will discuss in one of the subsequent slides. Another thing that you should not do is the reliance on inauthentic content. Also, part of writing a successful academic assignment is to be able to follow the instructions. So your content should fit within the given word limit. So if you've been asked to write an assignment of, let's say, 1,500 words, more isn't always the way to go. Like, if you feel that you have a lot of information and you have a lot to say and you have a lot to write, you still need to figure out a way to somehow squeeze that information effectively to be within the word count limit that has been given to you. And don't go overboard with information. Writing pages and pages and pages doesn't ensure that you get a very good grade. The TA wants to see that you are able to understand and follow what is asked of you, that you are able to organize your thoughts, you organize your information, and you present it in a way that has been asked of you. And this is where you get a good grade. Filling up pages with overload of information, it's not going to give you a good grade if you have disregarded the instructions that have been given to you. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so frequent mistakes that students make, some of which I've already covered somehow in the explanations in the previous slides, but let's go over them again and see if there's anything that we haven't discussed yet, is failing to understand what is asked of you in the assignment question. As I have mentioned before, it's very important that you understand the assignment question clearly and make your outline and organize your content relevant to the assignment question. If you do not understand what is being asked of you, you cannot efficiently answer the assignment. And for example, you can't answer with oranges if you've been asked strawberries. So you always need to understand what is being asked of you. Another thing that students frequently do is not utilize the resources provided on the respective course page. So if you go to the respective course page, you will find study material. You will also find material under each of the modules. There's usually a PDF file or a Word file or presentation slides attached. There is also supplementary study material that you can go through. And there are resources, databases, libraries that you have been given access to from the IAU that you really need to make use of. So use all the resources that have been provided to you. Sometimes students end up complaining that they don't find the right material, the right books, but they have looked in the right places. So always, always, always firstly check out your course page for any information that's already there, any material that's already there, and that could help you in formulating your assignment. Sometimes, although ideally, at a time where the assignment questions are released, you would probably already have gone through the corresponding module if you are on track. But since online study requires that you actually, you maintain your own timetable. So a lot of students, they might, fall behind in modules and the assignment questions release and you haven't really been through all the modules yet. And when you open your assignment questions, you might get the feeling of, where did that question come from? I haven't studied anything about this particular topic, or I don't even know where this came from, or is it even relevant to the course? So this is mostly because you haven't reached the module yet, or you haven't actually gone through the module yet. So it's always, always, always helpful to, go through the corresponding module. And if you already have gone through it, and you feel that you forgot the essence, it's always useful to go back to it and, go through it once more, and then, refresh your concepts and then sit down to, attempt the assignment question. So always go through the relevant study modules before attempting your assignment. Another thing that frequently happens when you are sitting down to do your assignments is the failing of students to focus on the relevant data. Like it might be the result of, going overboard in downloading information, or you have lots of articles on your hand and you don't really know what sections are really relevant to the question being asked. So you end up focusing on irrelevant data and you end up putting irrelevant data into your assignment. So this is something that would result in loss of grade, because if you don't stick to the point and you wander off course, then you don't really end up answering the question like you should answer it. So another thing where students usually get deductions is failing to do the proper citations in the style asked. So the assignment question usually also mentions which style of citation you need to follow. It could be APA, it could be MLA, Chicago, whichever style the TA has asked. if the style is not mentioned, it's always good to double check with your TA if he or she prefers a certain style, and then you stick to that style. You make sure that the citations in your text as well as the citations at the end of your assignment are in that particular format. Because if you don't follow the particular format and you fail to do the citations properly, that would definitely cost you marks, because citations and references are an integral part of academic writings. So another thing is students fail to properly rephrase the cited content to avoid a high plagiarism score. So you might think that if you have cited somebody, you don't really need to rephrase it. Like you can copy paste a whole paragraph from somebody else's article online, and you might think that as long as you give a proper reference at the end, it doesn't count as plagiarism. But the thing is, even if you take somebody else's content, you need to make it your own. Like you need to give it your own wording. You need to rephrase it good enough that it doesn't really show up in the plagiarism software. Because I don't know if everybody knows this, but all assignments that you end up uploading to your course pages actually go through a plagiarism software that checks similarity with other sources. So if you do not rephrase it good enough, it will show up as being plagiarized, even if there's a citation present. So this would give you a high plagiarism score, and a plagiarism score that is higher means a significantly lower grade on your paper or your assignment. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so now that we have talked about individual assignments, the typical assignments that you sit down alone and you attempt alone, now we have a special segment with our HOD from the Business Administration Department, Dr. Shafiq, and he will come to the rescue for the newly introduced group assignments at the IAU, because this is something that differs from the individual assignments. So I would like to give the floor to Dr. Shafiq, inshallah, to go through the essence of the group assignments with you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I was listening to Sister Yasmin Tur and very much impressed with her knowledge about the assignments. Now, we have recently introduced group assignment as a pilot project for every department for one course only. So, dear students, the concept is very simple, and this is actually making your life easy. So through this, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you clearly.
Okay, I'm audible then. So the objective of this group assignment is to help the students work together and develop a culture of teamwork. That is the objective. And also to share the knowledge among the students. And also another advantage of the group assignment is your workload is less. Now 4 to 5 students will work together. This concept that has been newly introduced, I'm sure we will be able to send you the group assignment guidelines that we have drafted already. So let me explain you for you department, whenever you will be asked for it, if because of we are introducing this concept newly, so your department may not have sent you the announcement yet, but do not worry, you will not be penalized for that. I'm sure your head of the departments will be sympathetic to you and you will be given sufficient time. So what I have done, I think I can give you an example that all the students, their name, ID number, email address, put them in an Excel sheet. I will share this idea with other head of the departments as well. So the link of that Excel sheet, actually, in fact, it is a Google sheet. So the link of that Google sheet has been shared with all the students, and students now are having the opportunity to get access to this Google sheet. And in that Google sheet, what I have requested everyone to put their current country of residence. So once everyone is putting their current country of residence, then it will be easy for us to identify students living in the same country or same time zone or similar time zone, approximate time zones. So student with the same time zone or similar time zones can form the group. So there can be two ways how to form the group. One way is student can invite other students to join their groups. Like one of the students can voluntarily ask other students that, okay, I live in Malaysia, you all are living in Malaysia, please join in my group. So we can work on the assignment. And alternatively, the head of the department can also assign one of the students as a team leader and another student as deputy team leader, and then 3 other students as member. So this responsibility of a team leader is not based on your seniority or based on your past result. This is for the sake of maintaining the discipline. So all of you can then work together. You can create Google Docs where you can all work together, or alternatively, the assignment can be subdivided into 4 or 5 components, and each of you can be allocated one of the components by the team leader. And then once you work on the component that you have been assigned, and then everyone can share their components and put them together, and other students can give suggestions to make some improvements. So the main focus of this group assignment is to give the opportunity to the students. Usually what happens that sometimes one of the students, he may not have sound knowledge of a topic, but maybe one of the member of the group has the sound knowledge. So they complement each other. When they work together, someone has 100% knowledge, someone has 80% knowledge, someone may have 70% knowledge of the topic, but when everyone is working together, they share their knowledge and they complement each other, and that's how they prepare the whole assignment. So once you will be given the guidelines, your first thing is HODs can create one Excel sheet or Google sheet for the students, and will share the link among the students, and then the students can go on to the Excel sheet or Google sheet where a student will put their current country of residence, and that's how, I'm repeating, that's how you will be able to identify who are the students living in the same time zone or very close time zones. Like students living in Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangkok, like Thailand, sorry, they can all work together in one team. So that's how I'm looking at it. So I think that's all. And when you get the guideline, you will get further knowledge and idea. And because this is new, I think everyone may have some opportunity to contribute with their, maybe you have already in your lifetime, you already have some group work, already did some group work. So that experience you can bring here. Everyone can complement each other. That's another opportunity. And finally, whenever you are doing individual assignment, you are doing the whole assignment by yourself. Now this is a group assignment, and here only doing maybe 1/4 or 1/5 of the task instead of the whole task by yourself. I think I want to stop here. I would like to now invite our Dean, Professor Raufu, to say a few words, if you want to add something. Professor Raufu, if you are here, or if you want to add anything in addition to what I said. Sister Yasmin, are you here? All right, then what I would like to conclude that because in the very beginning of today's lecture, you heard from Sister Yasmin Tur. She talked about the individual assignment or assignment in general. I think that's a great opportunity for all of you to learn. And also at the same time, I will explore whether if it is possible to share the past assignment from each department, one sample assignment. I'm not sure whether that is possible legally, but if a sample assignment is given, the concept of developing an assignment will be very easy to the students. So with those few words, I would like to conclude. And at this moment, I invite Sister Asma to move forward.
Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Shafiq. We appreciate your input, inshallah. We ask Allah to bless you and to reward all of your efforts in educating the Ummah. All right, dear students, let us address the subject of plagiarism here, because plagiarism is one of the many frequently asked questions in all of the groups that we have coming up again and again and again, from students writing into their teachers and writing into the help desk, asking in social media groups. Plagiarism is, first of all, let's begin with a definition, a kind of a definition of what plagiarism is. Plagiarism is when you are using information or using content from another source, but you are not credibly and accurately and correctly citing that source. You are taking it basically as it is your own writing or your own thoughts. So if you go to any source, a textbook, a website, an encyclopedia, anything, and you copy material from there and paste it on your paper without saying where you took this information from, that is, in a nutshell, plagiarism. Okay, how do you avoid plagiarism in your paper? You can even plagiarize an idea if you paraphrase an idea. You can read something in a book or read something on a website or hear it in a lecture or some source, and you think, oh, wow, that's a really good idea. And then you say it in your own words, but the idea came from somebody else, and that idea needs to be, with all integrity, referred back to where the idea was taken from. So plagiarism enters into a paper, when you copy your sources, without giving credit to the owner of it, you misuse the intellectual property rights of others. If something is not in a published paper, a copyrighted paper, or a formal book or publication, that still doesn't mean that it's right to turn around and use that information in your paper without citing where you took the information from. If you have received information from an unpublished paper, if you check your style manuals, you can see how to properly cite and also put in the reference list anything that is an unpublished paper. You cannot replace going back to your style manuals, whichever style you're using, to find the rules on how to cite your sources. This is one of the huge things that students need to learn to do from their first semester. Invest in either online resources for the style manuals, or go out and purchase the books of them so that you have it right there. You're going to write many, many research papers in your degree process. So in the writing of these papers, you want to have access immediately to how you need to style your paper. The APA manual is available. MLA manuals are available. The Chicago style manuals are available. Most of them through Amazon or through local libraries. You can get them, you can take them, and you can use them for referencing in your papers. You always, always, always must cite outside information that you're using to form your conclusions. Do not jump around between styles. If you start a paper in MLA style, then have your MLA manual or the online sources available, and make sure that you're using that referencing style throughout your paper. Make sure that the in-text citations that you're putting in your paper are going to match the reference list at the end of the paper. So now we have some samples and examples of some of the some papers and how you can set your papers up. Here you can see the cover page of a thesis for writing one of the theses if you're BA or MA level. At the top, you'll have the running head. This includes the title of your paper. If you go to your reference manual, it shows you how to set this up. If you go to like YouTube, you can type in how to set up a running head, and it gives you very simple instructions on how to put the headers and the running head, which is different from just your normal header, how to put those into your paper. Normally, we would include the basmala at the top of the page. You put the main title and then under it the subtitle of your paper. On the thesis, you have thesis to be submitted in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the completion of Master of Arts in Islamic Studies. And you can put the year under that. The student's full name, and under that, their ID number. Under the supervision of, and you would put your supervisor's name. And under that, you have Islamic Open University. For a research or assignment paper, I apologize, we have the same example up here twice, but you do not have to put the thing of the thesis being submitted, that would not be there. You can remove that. The student's full name and ID. You can put under the supervision of, and then for your researcher's research or assignment paper, you can put your teacher's name. They also want you to include the code, if it's Aqidah 101, 302, whatever it is that you're studying, fiqh, Aqidah, hadith, you would put that on there. and you have the name of the university. So these are examples of how to set up a cover page. It's very plain, but as Sister Yasmin was talking about, this is a formal paper. So in the plain black and white text, and that you get the essence that the paper is a formal paper. It's not one for entertainment, and it's not one for, pleasurable, not pleasurable. It should be pleasurable to read your assignment, but it's not one for just like reading a novel or a storybook or something. That this is, it gives that formality to your paper, inshallah. All right, here we have examples of how to reference Quran and Hadith, and also using the footnotes in the APA style. On this paper, you can see that partway down in the page on the left, there is reference to Quran. Also halfway down in the second page is reference to Quran. According to the APA style, which most of our papers are in APA style, the references to Quran, references to any religious text, be it Quran, be it the Bible, being it the Old Testament, or if you have Torah without being in the section of the Bible. But any religious text that you have, it is not dealt with in the same way that they deal with texts and sources that are man-made. These are given a respect as being revelation, and therefore we do not put them in the reference list. Okay, the reference list is going to refer the Quran back to its author. Well, the author is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, and for this reason, the belief of other belief systems is that their religious texts are coming from a divine source. We do not lower these sources to being put in with man-made sources. When we're going to reference a religious text, then it is done within the text, within the body of the text. It's well known. It's a well-known book, whichever it is, and therefore simply stating that you took it from the Quran or took it from the Bible or took it from whichever other source you have is enough for people to understand the source of that text. Okay, so here you have the example where it says in the Quran, Allah clearly tells us in verse 44 of Surah Yunus, he does not wrong people, rather it's people who wrong themselves. And then since Quran is in Arabic, to put the verse in Arabic, and then after it, you can put the translation. You could proceed the translation with, if this is translated into English as, and then put the translation, or you can put it directly under as is done in this paper. When you're talking about citing the hadith, okay, at the very bottom of this page on the left, you have Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, was asked, what did the messenger of Allah used to do inside his house? Okay, and then it says, she answered, he used to keep himself busy helping members of his family, and it was the time for salat, he would get up for prayer. Okay, the referencing of that is done in a footnote at the bottom of the page, where it says all references for hadith are retrieved from and given the web source for that hadith. Okay, you can alternatively, if you're not using an internet source for your for the hadith, or if your TA does not allow you to use a web source, you get the book and you would simply in the footnote, note if it was, for example, Sahih al-Bukhari, book number 3, page number this, hadith number this. okay? And you put that down in the footnote there. And, you know, this is an appropriate style way of putting footnotes using APA style. It is in the manual. You can get the manual, you can look it up, and it tells you specifically how to use footnotes in the APA style. Many people say that, you know, they're told they're not allowed to use. APA does not utilize footnotes. It's not recommended. It's not something that the APA style uses for long explanations. I'm sure we've all seen books where there are footnotes that take up a whole page. I mean, there might literally be just a sentence or two, or have part of a sentence at the top of a page, and then there's a footnote at, you know, under a line. And that footnote could actually be other text. It goes into such detailed explanation. This is allowed in other styles, but it's not allowed in APA style. However, if you need to give just a quick reference, a small reference to a source or a resource or a net source or something such as this, then this is allowed in APA style. And this is completely covered in the style manual. You can look it up and you can see exactly how to go about doing it. We have some very commonly asked questions. These were submitted, Jazakumullah khairan, through the Google form over the past few days. We just want to quickly go over the common questions asked. They were grouped in, although we got many questions, they came under a set of 10 or 12 different themes or topics of what all the questions came under. They were common and mistakes, origins of the questions, the reliable sources that we can use, the paper format, asking for assistance or guidance. People wrote in asking for tips. They had general questions, plagiarism questions, deadline questions, questions about APA and different styles, citations and references, the word count. There were a few questions specific for the Arabic languages and psychology. What I would suggest for the students writing in about that is to go directly to your TA in that specific major and ask them what it is that they require. Okay. However, one of the Arabic questions resonated through one of the other topics of everybody else's questions was, if we cannot use the internet for information that we need, then what sources can we use? These are excellent questions, and just go back to your teacher, the TA of the thing, and specifically ask them, utilize the student forums that are there. They ask the TA forum. Ask your TA these types of general knowledge questions so the TA can answer you there, and all the students can benefit from that answer. Beginning with like common mistakes. What are the common mistakes in the papers that we should avoid? Common mistakes, I think Sister Yasmin has already gone over some of those. You need to stick to the topic. One of the heads of our department, Dr. Nasariatu, he said you need to focus on the relevance of the content that you're writing. And you get many students, like, they will write long and beautiful papers, but they do not cover the main aspects of what the assignment question was requiring. And therefore that is going to cause deductions. You don't need to write a lot. You just need to demonstrate that you understood the question and you have knowledge about it. Papers that are 1,200 words or 1,500 words are not very lengthy. Sometimes the challenge is to be able to say enough or to express yourself in such a short paper, especially over some of the topics we have. So please, you have to maintain your focus. The focus is maintained, as Sister Yasmin pointed out, by planning. Look at the question, understand exactly what the question is asking for, and then make your plan, set up an outline for how you're going to address the situation. Part of your outline would be an introduction and a conclusion. And then how you're going to move from the introduction down to the conclusion. You should include a section with a counter to your position. Okay, that's an honest assessment of the information you're giving. Is that, well, some people would say, I am saying this, and other people would say no, it's and another time, the opposite. And then you want to address that and then conclude. Okay, so you need to sit down and think about your paper in a very neutral way. Not only do we want to make our point, but we also have to think about somebody else's side. If I want to say, for example, that there is prejudice against the Muslims in some place, some area, okay, I have to be open to the fact that some people are going to say, no, there isn't. That's part of your imagination. So how do I address that? Of course, through evidence, and therefore the evidence presented, and you show this side and that side of an argument, and then you explain why you came to your conclusion. The origins of the questions. Do the questions come from the modules or other sources? And how many modules do we have to cover before doing an assignment? Most of the questions are going to come not just from a specific module, but from the overall content of the course that you're studying. So you should, through this course of your studies, be able to write on something about this topic, kind of synthesizing the information that you take from the whole course. That is not to say that you can't. Sometimes in my planning stages, I would see the questions and I would look through the distribution of syllabus for the course and see if there were specific modules in there that had that same title or had that same topic, which I could then refer directly to that module, listen to it to see about getting information firstly from the modules about this topic. So yes, sometimes the questions can come from a specific module in your course, but a lot of times it's a coagulation of the knowledge. It's putting everything together, synthesizing what you're learning throughout the course in order to write a paper. Usually what students have noticed is that one of the questions will come from the pre-midterm modules and one of the questions will come from post-midterm modules, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a standard for all courses and all departments in all papers. What are the reliable web sources and what websites can we use? Where to look for answers with the internet being unreliable in some sources? Which websites are permissible to use when searching for materials? It comes up again and again. Can we use module notes as our references and how do we cite them? That's an excellent question because the module notes are an unpublished resource. But if you find that you can use it, that information, yes, you would have to ask that of your TA. Ask if you would be allowed to use the course notes for your paper. They might ask you what notes, where are they, where you got them, and then you can tell that specifically to your TA, and they can decide that it's allowable or not, or official or not. But the APA manual does have a small section on how to cite unpublished sources or resources. You could, like, such as an interview that you have with somebody, somebody you're just having a discussion with and you learned something from. These are unpublished sources, and depending on your TA, just might allow them to be used in a paper. Which websites are we advised to avoid completely, and which ones can we use? And where can I get sources for the assignments? The sources, if any published book, any published work, we can use those. I can recall in one or two of the papers that I had written that it also became a bit necessary to go to what might be labeled as unofficial or deviant, or, because sometimes you need to get another point of view. Sometimes you need to see what's being said in the opposite of what you're claiming. And so therefore, to set up this antithesis, or this, argument to your point, you need to look at sources that we might not quote as an official source for our information. All of these questions, while it might be a good idea for IOU to publish a list of websites to not, that are not acceptable, and that would be an across the board thing, or websites we can use, or to give a direction to websites we can use. It's always a good idea, if you have a website where you're taking information from, you can always send that link to your TA. The TA can check it very quickly and say, yes, you can use this, or no, you can't. And hopefully the TA would explain why. But I did have some of the teachers of the courses who would accept from certain sources or websites, and then I would have other TAs who said no, not to use that website. So always refer these kinds of questions back to your teacher, because it's very important. Don't ask these in the social media groups and chats with other students, because one student might tell you it's okay to use them. They used it on their paper and it was fine, but it might have been for another teacher. It might have been a different topic, or a different answer, and therefore the one that they gave was valid, but the one that you're giving is questionable. So always refer that link back to your TA, who can check it and look and see if this is a valid source or not, or possibly just this specific question or topic is valid, or it's not backed by validity. Your paper format. We have many questions about the formats of the paper. Do we write it in essay form? Does the paper have an introduction and conclusion? Should we come to individual and personal conclusions at the end, or the text be objectively written? That question was already addressed by Sister Yasmin. Our individual and personal conclusions actually should be based on the evidence. Okay, if we want to form a valid argument for any, discussion, then it should be grounded in evidence. Therefore, we can't just make a statement and want to prove it. The first person we are teaching with our research papers is ourselves. We are actually getting out there and exploring the knowledge to make sure what we think about the topic is correct. So we're teaching ourselves, and then we're writing it down in a paper in order to demonstrate what we've learned, and hopefully to teach others, because it's based on evidence. Just like in Quran or in Islam, And we always tell people that Islam is not based on opinion. Islam is based on revelation, on tanzil. And before we say anything or speak in, on Allah's behalf about something, we have to have evidence as to it. So in the same situation, we should not be writing a paper and presenting a discussion or a conclusion about something that is not grounded in evidence and fact. That's what we're searching for by writing our research papers. Writing it in essay form, if you go to the style, the manual styles, and you can also Google, research papers done in APA style, research papers done in MLA style. If you don't understand it, go look for some examples and see how they are done. All right. Now, keep in mind that if you are able to Google them, they are probably published sources, so that you can't just copy and paste from them without having the link how to get back to them, because they will come up in a search, like when they're run through the plagiarism checkers. It will come up because it's already on Google, which means it's published out on the net. It will come up that this was copied and pasted, or it was paraphrased from this other similar paper. So always cite where you're getting your information from. The formats of the papers are gone over in the reference manuals. Yes, we do write an introduction. We do write a conclusion. In the middle of it is the body of the paper, which is going to connect that introduction to the conclusion made. That middle section is basically the evidence and the counter opinions to the paper and the evidence against that counter opinion. Can I use more styles of writing assignments instead of the APA style? The style should be set up by your TA. So always go back and ask your TA. If the TA gives you a choice, you can choose whichever's easy for you then, but normally the TA will set up a style to use for a particular assignment. As for confusion, and that's been told in some of the questions, and not understanding the APA format, I'll get the manual either online or a physical copy and just go through it and read it for each part. For every part you're working on, use that part of the manual to help and guide you for it. The answer is to keep writing papers. You might not do your best on your first paper written, but after you've written 6 this semester, or 5 of them for the revised curriculum, you're going to get better. And as Sister Yasmin said, you always have to go back and reread it and edit. So maybe the first paper you didn't know what you're doing, but after writing 5 papers this semester, you can go back to that first paper and then adjust it and change it in order to improve upon it. Because perhaps the final paper you wrote, you finally understood about the section heads and the subheadings and the indentations and how to quote and how to in-text citations and do all these things. Whereas your first paper, you didn't fully understand that. So you write your papers, then take time to set them aside and go back and reread them and look at them again and see if your first paper could be improved upon even after having written your other papers for the semester. Inshallah, Allah make it easy, and you will develop as the more you're doing. Asking for guidance or assistance. Who do we ask if I don't understand the assignment questions or the questions are not clear? How do we begin writing the assignments? How are the assignments submitted? Always go back to your TA, the TA of the course. Your teacher knows what he or she expects, and this is the person who will be able to tell you if you will be deducted for doing something or if you will be able to, submit it as it is, or, whatever questions you have about it. If you have, questions about, can I use illustrations in my paper? Quite possibly one TA will think that text is enough. Another TA might feel that illustrations are fine. So it always go back and ask questions that pertain to, is this permissible? Will I be deducted? Do I have to? Am I allowed to? These are the questions that you should address to the TA using the Ask the TA form. Then all students can benefit from the answers. Also go back to these forums and see, did somebody else ask the same question and it's already been answered? One thing we learned from the form that you sent in was that many students ask exactly the same question. And in anticipation of this, Sister Yasmin did an excellent job of showing, demonstrating the answers to many of these questions that were sent in before we even got to the question part. How are assignments submitted? There's on the assignment page, you would upload your assignments and you have to make sure that it's been submitted. Okay, so you can check it. If it's been that's why it's always best not to wait until the last day or the last week just before they're due, because if something happens where you thought you submitted it, but the submission didn't upload, it didn't go through, you have time to go back and check with your TA and make sure that you did, in fact, upload the assignment and it was there and you're getting credit for it. How do you begin writing the assignments? Sister Yasmina approached that. First of all, you want to plan and you want to understand the question, absolutely understand what it is that you're being asked. If you can't get that, the first thing you need, possibly send an email to your teacher. And you might want to express that and say, I'm really not understanding what's required of me with this question. Can you help me with what you expect? And the TAs will, they will, teach you in that manner. They're allowed to, they're not going to write your paper for you, but they are allowed to express what they expect and how to get to that expectation. People asking for what are tips or tricks to ace the assignments. Do a lot of research, go online, look for examples of papers that have already been published. It does not have to be in Islamic studies, or if you're in psychology or education or IT, it doesn't have to be in your field. It can just be an excellent paper. You will get an example of how to set up the paper, what it should look like, how you put in a table of contents, how you do this, headings and subheadings. What does a good paper look like? And then from there, you can now begin to think about what you have to write and how to make it fit in that look. Word has settings for all of these things. Word can insert your table of contents. Word will insert the headers and footers and page numbers. And, there's text boxes to use, and there's the headings and subheadings. You can choose the style that you need according to the publication style you're using. Is it MLA or APA or Chicago or Harvard? Or, these things are all programmed into Word. So use Word to your advantage so that you can, get your paper set up as easily as possible. General questions. Where can I get the assignment? Each course page has an assignment tab on it. Just go there, open it, and your assignment will be published there. You click on the assignment page, there's, as an attachment, and it will open up. You can save it to your computer and then you can begin. How do I answer my assignment questions? The assignment questions is given to you on a paper. You would then open a Word document and you would put in, the cover page and the other components as it is. You do not write on the assignment paper because it's uploaded in PDF format. You do open a Word document and begin there. If you have any questions as to whether any component of the assignment paper needs to be included on like your cover page or in a page after that or something, ask your TA, ask them for everything you have. They know what they expect and they know what they will allow. What are the rules for writing the assignment? Your grading scheme should be listed on the assignment paper. How many points are set up for each component of it and how you are going to be graded. What format do we use? What's the criteria we have to follow? What are the restrictions concerning the sources of information? All of that is available from your TA. The format you use, if it's APA or MLA, Chicago, Harvard, Vancouver, all of these publication styles are available online. We have an IOU channel now where we've published several resources for how to find information on all of these styles and how to write your assignments. So you can look up these, use the links to find information on all of them, and always go back to your TA and ask what is acceptable. Plagiarism has already been addressed by Sister Yasmin. The deadline is the same for all courses. If we cannot submit the assignments for every subject, can we only do some and submit other ones later? If I have a valid reason to submit my paper in the late time, am I still deducted? The deadlines are published on your student page. You can get online, you can sign into your account, you can see what are the deadlines and the late submission periods for your assignments. It is possible to submit them later. There's a 15% deduction. All of this is explained clearly on your student portals. Yes, if you have a valid reason to submit your paper, then that's the reason you have a valid reason, is so that you're not deducted. You give a reason why you had to submit it, late, you couldn't do it on time, and the admin team or who's responsible or your TA would the person responsible or the department responsible for revising these reasons, they would make the decision on if it's valid or not. They can if you sent your email, they might contact you about your email again. They might ask for, like if you said you went to Umrah, they might ask you for evidence of having gone to Umrah or something like this. And with valid evidence of a valid reason, then usually, alhamdulillah, the deduction is removed. Alhamdulillah. Somebody wrote in what it means to write an APA writing style. APA means American Psychological Association. It is a standardized writing format for scientific types of papers. Okay. And it's a way to set up your paper so it's handled in a formal way. It has a cover page with the title and certain information on it, and even moving through the paper will have certain headings, subheadings, sections that are required, and all of these things are available in the style manual. There are links in the channel that have been published so that you can go to the online sources and you can buy the style manuals, and then these things will help you when setting up your paper, how to set it up correctly. Do we have to strictly follow this APA style rules, and do we have to include an index? Yes, an index. If the if your teacher has specified the APA style, then you must stick to it. So it's important to know what that style requires. And I think if you're asking to include an index, I guess you mean a reference list. Reference lists are required, as Sister Yasmin also pointed out. You have to do in-text citations, and you have to do a reference list for anything that's not your own ideas. You must cite all your sources. When it comes to plagiarism, Sister Yasmin pointed out, yes, it's excellent. Always try to paraphrase something. However, sometimes it is not feasible to paraphrase something. It's also could be more impactful in your paper to give a direct quote, because you really want to point out that these exact words came from this exact source. So you either following your manual for how many words are to be included in a quotation, you would either put like I think it's up to 100 words in quotation marks, or maybe 80 words. You can use quotation marks, and then you put an in-text citation by that text, and you would put the reference in the reference list. If it's a longer passage than that number of words, then what you do for APA style is you indent, okay, so that it's set inside from the normal margins of your paper, and you can tell that it's different. And then you would also, after that indented paragraph, you would put the in-text citation and also put the reference in the reference list. When you want to check your the similarity, okay, simply what I would do when I was doing my papers is I would not put quoted text, Quran, Hadith, or anything quoted out of a book or off of an internet or off of a known source. I didn't include it in the checker. I was checking my work. So anything that I knew that I had taken from another source would be put in these, in this way. And then when I was checking it in the checker, I did not include it in the sources. And so when you run it through your own text through the citation generator, then you will be able to see the percentage without running into problems with quoted materials. Okay, now let's conclude this section of the commonly asked questions, and we can now move on to the Q&A.
Jazakumullah khairan, barakallahu fikum, Sister Asma, for a very, very detailed coverage of the most frequently asked questions. I hope that most of the questions that the students were going to ask anyway would have been covered, because alhamdulillah, your your segment was really, really very extensive and detailed. May Allah bless you and reward you for that. So if there are, as I mentioned at the start of the question of the session, if there are any questions that haven't been directly addressed, if there are any questions that haven't been touched and you want to ask us directly, you can now use the YouTube live chat feature to type in your questions. And inshallah, I will try to answer as many of those questions within the designated time, of course, as I can, inshallah. So one thing that I would like to mention before going into the questions is that every student at the IOU has access to a study skills course on their dashboard. And it is a detailed program that was recorded a couple of semesters ago, in which you will find helpful resources and lectures on how to develop study skills, how to focus on your writing, how to be a better writer, and many of that related stuff. So it's something that is on the course page of every student. So please, please, please do have a look. And the IOU also has a couple of published books on academic writing, thesis writing. Those books also should be on your dashboard, on your course page, under the resources that you have been given. Please do check it out. Do go through it, read it, make use of the resources that have been provided to you, inshallah. The more you read and explore, the more you widen your mind. You improve your aptitude as a researcher. So this is something, do not limit yourself to just, that one assignment per course, per semester. Get into a habit of reading, get into a habit of looking at things critically, analyzing them, to be able to identify arguments, counter arguments, to be able to, identify what approach a certain researcher has used in their paper, to be able to identify research design. These are all traits and skills that if you develop them early on, they will definitely help you along your journey, and they will add towards refinement of all your research and writing related skills later on in your degree, which will come in handy since you are required to do a thesis at the end of your degree. So with that being said, I will now move towards the live questions that are being submitted. Please note that any questions that have already been answered will be filtered out, and I will try to answer those questions which somehow have not yet been addressed. So one of the students asked that are there any examples of any trusted sources that we can refer to on the internet? So as I mentioned before, anything that is not published, anything that is not academic, is not a reliable source for when you do an academic assignment. So you cannot just, pick any, celebrity's social media post or something, or anybody's, quotation, or anybody's article on a random blog. Your source needs to be academic. It could be a published book, a published review paper, a published research article, a published book summary. It could be a proceeding from a research conference. It can be a research article from a particular research journal. For definitions and terms and terminologies, you can always use the standardized dictionaries that are accepted worldwide. Do not use Wikipedia. Do not pick a sentence out of a random YouTube clip, for example. Do not pick anything out of a influential person's social media post without reference, for example. So even if you, let's say, for example, if you go to an influential speaker's page and you find something that relates to your content somehow, that person didn't come up with anything entirely on his or her own. So go back to the sources that have been used in a particular lecture. So for example, if you're listening to a YouTube lecture and you find something that the speaker is quoting, you need to go back to the actual source, and that source is always going to be a book or an article or a paper or something. So always go back to the original source, and that original source will almost always be credible. Okay. So another question we are getting is, what is an appendix? How to write it? Do I have to write an appendix in every assignment? So understand that an appendix is a section at the end of the assignment where you would put any supplementary material that you have used in your assignment that do not actually fit into the body of your assignment. So if you have used such resources, if you, let's say, have used, for example, for a researcher of mathematics or statistics, if you have used any mathematical models or statistical models or formulas or standardizations that you somehow cannot fit into the body of your assignment, you write those in the appendix. Usually all the sources that you are using, the academic sources, the books, the papers, the reviews, the articles, they come under the reference section. So if there's anything else that you have used, then it is a good idea to include it in the appendix. But if you haven't used anything like that, then you do not have to write an appendix in every assignment, because if there's nothing that you write in the appendix, then there is no purpose of even having an appendix, right? So another question is, from where can I get the list of credible sources from where I can quote? So you need to, sit down on the internet or in a library, or, go through books relating to your subject, the content of your assignment, and you will find plenty of credible sources. I already explained what credible sources are. So another question that's coming in is, please elaborate the term critical thinking. So critical thinking goes hand in hand with, developing logical analysis skills. So if you look at things in a logical way, if you look at, if you can identify the arguments used in a certain research, if you are able to inference, if you can determine the relevance of data before you, if you can analyze an argument that a researcher has presented, and if you are able to present a argument of your own, these are all things that contribute towards critical thinking. So you need to have the curiosity to go towards the source, to understand concepts, to not be satisfied until you have all the answers. So that is critical thinking. Some people are like this by nature, but if you're not a critical thinker, you can certainly develop your critical thinking skills. So as a researcher, this is a characteristic that will most certainly be very helpful along the way. So another question is, which referencing style should we use? As Sister Asma already explained very elaborately, you use the referencing style that your TA requests. So if it's not mentioned on your assignment paper, on your question paper, you go back to your TA and you ask, is there any preferable style of referencing that you would like me to use? If the TA says use this or use that, then you use this and you stick to the format. If the TA gives you free hand, like as long as you are using one single style throughout your paper, I don't care if it's APA or MLA or Chicago or whatever, then you are free to choose one particular style, but you have to stick to that style. You cannot mix and match different styles in the same assignment, okay? Okay, another question is, most libraries here grant access to the public only when you provide a student ID. is there any provision for us to download our IDs so that we can also have access into those libraries? Yes, as far as I know, the IOU has the option of issuing student ID cards to students who wish to have them. I think there's a certain payment for that ID card, and you can pay that and then have your ID card. I don't know if you have an electronic copy or if you get sent a hard copy, but as far as I know, there is an option. Maybe you can go back to the Student Affairs Office and specifically ask them who you should be going and getting in touch with to, get a hand on that student ID, inshallah. If I want to say that this is my opinion, then I have to use a personal pronoun. No, you do not have to use a personal pronoun. Anything that is presented in your assignment that does not have a reference is automatically what the person writing the assignment is saying. Like if it's your assignment and you have written something that you observe, but you've written it in a indirect manner, like in a formal tone, and there's no citation, then the rest of the assignment, apart from the citation, is automatically your intellectual property. So you do not have to use a personal pronoun in order to indicate that you came up with something. If it's in your assignment and it's not a citation, it's not from another source, then it's automatically your intellectual property. Okay. How can we access the Darussalam library for research material? I think there's a tab on your dashboard somewhere for the all the libraries, the databases that you have access to through the IOU platform. Just click on it. There are a couple of things, and I think there are a couple of disclaimers that you need to read and understand. And at the bottom, if you click I understand and agree, then you are automatically redirected to the relevant resource and you can use the library, inshallah. I don't think it should be a problem. If, however, you have trouble accessing a particular book within the database that has otherwise been provided to you by the IOU for free, you can write to the librarian or the director of libraries and ask them to look into the issue and tell them that you are not able to access a certain book or a certain database that should otherwise be accessible to you. Another question is, if we read from different sources accordingly, we are not allowed to use our ideas instead of list references. So when it comes to research, even if let's say if you are reading like 10 different papers from 10 different authors and you get a general idea of what the facts are in those 10 papers, still, if you are it's the same thing. You're paraphrasing something that has already been pointed out by somebody else. So you would still have to point towards the reference that actually inspired you to have that idea. Because if you don't have that idea without reading, it means that you got that idea. It's not an idea anymore. It's a map of information according to your own understanding then. But the information came from somewhere. So you need to list the references where the information came from. So for example, if I don't know how, if I don't know how chocolate is made, I don't know how chocolate is made. But if I read a couple of papers on the manufacturing process of chocolate, I get an idea of how it's made, but that idea, it didn't come from me. Otherwise, I would have known how chocolate is made before reading those papers, without reading those papers, in fact. So I still have to, tell people how I understood the process of making chocolate, It's a simple, delicious example. you still need to, list the references. I'm not understanding how to insert the reference and where to insert, please guide. So there are two types of references. Sister Asma already elaborately explained about referencing, but let me repeat it again for your convenience. There is an in-text citation and there is an end of document reference list. So if you are, for example, if a certain researcher by the name of, let's say, Khan said in his paper that the sky is blue, when you write this, it has been observed that the sky is blue. After the sentence, in the bracket, you have to give the reference of who said it and when. So Khan said it in, let's say, 2005. So that is your in-text citation, which you have to insert right after the sentence that you took from somebody else's work. And then you have to give the full reference of the work that you cited at the end of your assignment. So if you go through the manuals, whether it's APA or Harvard or MLA, Vancouver, Chicago, there is a dedicated section in each of these manuals on the in-text and the end of document references. So please go study those and you will learn how to insert the reference and where to insert the reference. Okay, there is a student here who says, so if I don't need to look up for any content for my assignment, then I don't need to have a reference list. Is this right? Okay, I assume that you are from the Arabic language studies because Arabic language assignments are sometimes designed just to assess your vocabulary skills, or they might ask you to formulate something of your own to just, check how far you have come in, learning the language. So yes, if a particular assignment question asks you to do something of your own, if you really don't need to open anything, if you don't need to consult a book, or if you do not consult anything and you are just, you're just writing, for example, a dialogue in Arabic between two friends who are meeting over coffee, let's say for the sake of an example, then yes, you do not need to give a reference. But if you looked up examples, or if you looked up sentence structure, or if you consulted a book on grammar or something, then yes, you should provide that in your reference list at the end. But if you really are that advanced that you don't need to, open anything, then it's okay if you don't have a reference at the end. Yes, you are an Arabic student, an MA Arabic, intensive Arabic program. Yeah. So yes, when it comes to the Arabic assignments, it does happen sometimes that you can, go without actually consulting anything. But it's only for the communication-based assignments, where they're checking your communication skills, basically. It's for those assignments. Any other assignments, you would still need to, consult some books, some Arabic literature, or, some tafsirs, or, Arabic linguistic books. So you would still, need to provide the reference at the end. I dwell more on the source references given in course text, or more efforts are required. If your course text covers everything, it's okay, generally speaking, but your assignment should have at least 5 references, at least at the bachelor's level, and even at the master's level, it's you're going to be asked to write research papers anyway, not ordinary assignments. So they differ a little bit. They're more technical. So it's good to have a minimum of 10 references, if you ask me personally. But minimum of 5. So even if you just consulted your course book, within your course book, you will also be able to find certain references inside the course book, because your course book is also, it's from some author. It's bound to be from some author, and every author makes a citation of another author every now and then. So you could still, technically look at multiple sources, even if it's the same course book. So it's always good to have a couple of, references. You don't want to come off as a lazy researcher. So one reference is very less, even if it, fulfills the requirement of your question. You would still want to have more. Okay. My assignment content is less than the minimum word count. Would I be failed? That is completely at the discretion of your TA. Normally, if you do not fulfill the word count by a little margin, like say 10, 20, 30, 50 words, your TA might overlook it, not necessarily, but might. If your minimum word count is, for example, 1,200 words and you stop at 600 or 700, then yes, the TA has a reason to fail you if he or she wants, but they could still give you some grades for the amount of work you've done. But I don't believe there is a reason to not be able to fulfill the minimum word count, because they're not asking for 5,000 words, 10,000 words. They're not asking for a lot of words. And if you properly outline and plan your assignments and have the different sections, if you have an abstract, a body, a couple of subheadings, and then a conclusion, you can easily reach your minimum word count. And keep in mind that these assignments and the word counts assigned to each assignment question, they have been researched and they have been put together after looking into the scope and the amount of material that a particular student is able or not able to find on the internet. So it's impossible that a TA asks you for an assignment on a particular topic with, let's say, 1,500 words, if there's literally nothing to be found on the internet. They wouldn't do that. They're professionals. So as a researcher, you should be able to, fulfill the minimum requirement of the word count. Are group assignments mandatory for all courses? So as Dr. Shafiq specifically covered in the section for group assignments, it's something that's still being rolled out. Some departments might already have them, some might be getting them. But yes, I think during the course of your degree, irrespective your department, you will be coming across group assignments. Pretty sure, I think. Group assignment, can you please elaborate more on this? Because I was sent a form which I filled out, but still I don't know my group members. So if you have any questions related to the group assignments, then once again, ask your TA. If you have filled the form, uploaded it, or if you have sent it to someone, send a kind reminder that you are still waiting for information on your group mates, and they will get back to you. Please keep in mind that each TA doesn't just have a couple of students in a particular course. For some courses across the board, for example, the more common courses across the different departments, there are hundreds and thousands of students, taking a single course in a particular semester. So sometimes it can take a little while till you get a response, but, let the system work. And if, let's say, you don't get a response within, let's say, 3 or 4 days, then you can always, send a kind reminder and remind the TA that your issue is still not being looked into. And they will surely get back to you with the information on your group mates. Is there a group assignment for education students? I think if you don't have them yet, you will surely be getting them. What is the difference between citation, referencing, and bibliography? Look, citation is the process of putting references in the text. So if a reference is in the text, it's called a citation. If the list at the end of your document could either be a reference list or a bibliography. So a reference list, usually you write references if all the references you have used are of the same kind. So if you have cited only research articles, you usually write the term reference at the end above your list. But if there are different types of resources that you have consulted, like if it's books and articles and reviews and summaries, and blah, 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 then the word bibliography is more suitable. But it's essentially the same thing. Where can we find the manual? The manual can be found on the internet, of course. If you Google APA style, MLA style, usually the first or the second link would be a dedicated website with PDFs to download. I think all of your course pages also have a sample APA assignment with all the sections highlighted. You just need to look at the course page and you will find the relevant information. If somehow you have trouble finding the manual, you can always ask the TA forum of your respective course page, or ask the students forum, and I'm sure your TA will link it, and then everybody can benefit from the publicly linked manual, inshallah. Can we use footnotes in APA style? Yes, Sister Asma elaborately explained how to use footnotes in APA style. You can go over the slides in the recording later, inshallah, and you can relook at those examples. You can also look for more examples in the respective APA manual. Are there group assignments in the BBA department? I also need more evaluations on APA citation, plagiarism, and bibliography. I think all of this has been covered. Quoting Quranic verses and hadiths increases plagiarism percentage. Can we just quote the surah name, verse number, hadith book name, and number? Technically, you can quote it like this, but as Sister Asma mentioned, if you fear that the plagiarism software will detect Arabic text or a translation as plagiarism, just put it in, in the quotation marks, and the software won't be detecting it as a plagiarism. Does the assignment paper include an abstract? Yes, normally, unless your TA mentions that it's not a requirement, your assignment should include an abstract at the beginning. It's also called executive summary. You can call it as you like, but it should be an essential portion of your assignment. Unless the TA says that you don't need to do it, then you don't need to do it. Okay. Can you explain more on the IOU library? The IOU has a couple of databases for their students to access for free. If you go to your dashboard, you will find the library resources, the different libraries. I think there is the JSTOR database, it's the Oxford University Press, the Darus Salam library, and I think the Kalamullah library. I think these are a couple of, and the IOU is always actively working on getting more subscriptions, more databases. So any new databases that would be accessible to you would continuously be added on your dashboard. So just keep an eye out for any new resources. Elaborate APS style. I think we have talked about the APS style enough. I don't think there is anything left to do. An abstract, yes, generally an abstract is a required section of assignments. And if an abstract is in the assignment, it is included in the word count, yes. Okay. How to identify whether a book is published or not. When it comes to ebooks, you can generally, the first couple of pages, you would find information on the publishing house, the date, the year it was distributed and published. Sometimes nowadays, there are a lot of ebooks or brochures that are PDF and they are online, but it's usually just a title page with the author's name, and then it's like just it's just, you know, it lacks the general structure of a book, the general, you know, format of a book. So you can easily identify between something that, for example, I design and upload as a document and a properly published book. So it's easily identifiable. Okay, so there are no more questions coming in so far. Okay, yes. So I've just been confirmed that there are no more questions. So Jazakumullah khairan for sending in your questions. One thing that I like to mention here in particular is, as a student, if you are completely new to the IOU, to the online system, I get that you can be overwhelmed. You can be like not really comfortable from the very beginning with the whole online platform, but before you panic or before you start sending out emails to the help desk or to anybody else, I suggest, take a deep breath, sit down, look at the platform, navigate the platform, look at all the resources that are there, look at the FAQs that are on the website or on your dashboard, look at previous materials submitted by students where available, look at student notes, look at your academic calendar to mark important dates, and just take it all in. And if there's still something that you don't find the answer to, before directly writing to the help desk, you can also use the live chat option that pops up, in the bottom right corner. You can always use that and try to, categorize the kind of query you have and direct your question to the most capable person relevant to answer your question. Like, for example, the help desk is not, it's more for answering, administrative issues. So if you have academic questions, direct them towards your course instructor or your TA, or maybe if you are in connection in certain groups with alumni or seniors who are already had a couple of semesters, if they've gone through the course that you are in, you can always ask them for help, for guidelines. If you, however, need to direct a certain question to the help desk, please bear in mind that there are hundreds and thousands of you scattered all around the globe. Everybody is in a different time zone. Everybody is working in, in a different capacity. And there are hundreds and thousands of queries coming in, and the queries get answered as they come in. So allow for at least, 48 hours, 72 hours before, sending a reminder or, emailing again to ask if your question has been forwarded to the relevant person. Let the system work. And if there's something that you immediately need assistance with, it's always better to maybe refer to your local student committee members, your student community, and try to get a lead from there, because help desk has a dedicated processing time for requests. So there are some time constraints, and maybe you live in a completely different time zone, and it's morning at your end, but it's maybe it's the night or the evening where the help desk officer is residing. So there can be a delay. So don't get impatient. Allow them to get back to you, and inshallah, your questions, your queries, they will be resolved. But always try to look at existing resources first. 80 to 85% of the time, you will find an answer to your question if you look in the right place. So that spares everybody time and energy, including yourself. Once again, Jazakumullah khairan for taking the time to come to attend the session. A recording will be available for those of you who missed it or missed sections of it or had a bad connection. So you can go over it again. And I would like to remind you that you are in this because Allah has chosen you to acquire knowledge of His religion. It's not a small opportunity to have been given. So make the most of it. Make the most of your journey as a student, as a da'i, if you have the intention to do it after you complete your degree, as a researcher, as a critical thinker, and try to learn as much as you can. Don't just do it for the sake of, adding another paper or another degree to your list of degrees or qualifications. Have an aim. Don't be aimless. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the strength to, excel in your journey. Frequently ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you strength and to give you the ability to persevere and carry out your journey as a student in the best way possible. So the reward will be maximum, inshallah. I would also like to thank our HOD, Dr. Shafiqur Rahman from the Business Administration Department, for his time and for his special section on the group assignments. I would like to thank Sister Asma Miller for her very, very detailed section on plagiarism and the referencing styles and covering the most commonly asked questions. I would also like to add a note of thanks to everybody behind the scenes, technically, who have been, coordinating the live stream, sending in the live questions, monitoring everything. Nothing is impossible. Nothing is possible without any of you. And just like this session was brought to you by the commitment and the coordination of so many different people sitting in so many different places, in different time zones, you have at your disposal a very diverse student body, and you have different platforms to connect with them. make the most of those platforms, connect with your fellow students, and try to have the best online university experience that you can possibly have. Once again, Jazakumullah khairan. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of you in your journey, to accept from us our efforts, to forgive us any shortcomings and any mistakes that we might make along the way or might have made till now, including any mistakes in this session, any shortcomings. We are always open to suggestions from you. We are always working around the clock behind the scenes to ensure that your experience at the IOU keeps improving. So if there's anything, you can always reach out through the relevant channels and you will be responded with, inshallah. With that, I just want to place you in the care and protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May He bless and protect your families and yourselves, and may He enable you and us to continue serving the Ummah in whatever capacity possible, and may He make it easy for us in this world and the one hereafter. So, barakallah fikum, jazakumullah khairan, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.